Hey, what's up, everyone? This is Jeremy, founder of QuickMail.io.
And this is Jack from emailsthatsell.com.
Today, rapid fire.
All right, so today's rapid fire episode, we're going to go through some questions, answers, all about cold email. It's a rapid fire, so let's dive right in. Jeremy, are you ready?
Yes, I am. Let's go for it.
Question: what is the most challenging part of identifying potential sales prospects?
I think for me, it's definitely getting the right data in high quantity with minimum time. And that means it's not necessarily super easy to find a directory with the people matching exactly the right criteria for you. You're going to have to find some clever way sometime to tap to a pocket of high potential prospects. And a lot of time people are a bit too lazy. They get just directly a list that is like too broad. They try the shotgun kind of approach. And then, so the most challenging one is to go surgical and then getting like the right type of people, but on a higher scale. And way too often, unfortunately, people spend way too much time on crafting their email than actually doing this part of the research. And I wish people would spend as much, if not more, time on research rather than actually writing stuff.
Okay, so it's getting quality data and it's doing so that in a way that doesn't take up too much time, and you can do so at a volume that makes sense. So I have a slightly different answer here. So the most challenging part of identifying potential sales prospects for me is getting the timing right. What I mean by that is I actually think it's pretty easy to find companies in the right industry with the right size that use the right tools, blah, blah, blah. But knowing if they're hot, meaning if they're right now looking at a solution, is the CEO Googling hosting providers for SaaS or whatever, like finding out what timing questions, or if right now it's on their mind, on their plate to handle. That is actually really hard to uncover. Sometimes you can do it. So there's ways to figure out if they just dropped a tool or they just switch providers or something. These can be indicators. Maybe they're going to a conference or they just hired a bunch of people in marketing. But this stuff is the hard timing question to answer. But like we've talked about before, timing does matter. If you get it right, good things happen.
I know it's a rapid fire, but it's pretty close answer in the sense that you're mentioning that we may not have all the data we really would like to have
at our disposal. Correct.
All right, next question. What's that?
What advice would you give a new SDR that's in charge of cold email when they first got hired?
It's easy because we got a lot of SDR starting on QuickMail. And so I got to answer this question pretty often. One of the things that I would say straight away is you have to produce results. Because if you don't produce results straight away, then people get impatient unless you have someone that is very dedicated to make it work long term. So my advice to a new SDR starting will be build on low-hanging fruits straight away. So look at the existing clients to nail down a small audience that is very receptive. And then go and find this audience. That'll be one point. Once you have the right audience, I'll say test a lot of benefit in all of your first touches so you know what resonates very quickly. And therefore, you can minimize your actual time to get results to a very short period of time. Once you've proven that this works, then it's just a matter of scaling and then figuring out how you can get more of those prospects, or just negotiating with your boss about, let's try a different vertical, let's try to extend in those pockets. But they know the approach is working and they'll be more willing to take bigger risk on that. And my last point to that will be, do make sure, especially if you're new to cold email, do make sure that you check all the advice that we give on quickmail.io/checklist. We got 17 different points of things you need to consider or avoid, like sending emails to free@gmail because you'll get flagged more often. Try a different cold email domain and warming up. All those advice that are, summary on this page.
A lot of good stuff there, Jeremy. I like getting results quick. Your boss is going to want to make sure that you're being productive with your time. So I think that's a big one. Now, I've got a quick tip here that should help with getting results. And that is create lots of mini campaigns. And what a mini campaign is is a concentrated email campaign that's focused on a small sub-segment of your market. So it's going to look like is you've got maybe half a dozen or a dozen segments that have, I don't know, maybe 50, 100, 200 people in it. But this is going to allow you to write really tailored messages because you're tweaking it for each different kind of prospect that you want to reach out to. People who get these messages will notice that you're writing to them, not just a blanket shotgun email that's being sent to your whole market.
Super important.
Moving on. At what point in the cold email sequence should you talk about price? Here's the answer. Is price your unique selling proposition? Does your price alone get people excited or super interested in what you're selling? If yes, then you should mention it maybe early on in your campaign, maybe second, third, maybe even fourth touch. But if price ain't that big a deal for what you're selling, don't mention it in your cold email campaign. It's irrelevant. They're not ready to talk price before they respond to your email unless it really is part of your USP. I'll give you an example really quick. Lime Leads, a provider for prospects, had a pricing plan that was unique to the industry for a while. I think they were selling like 20-cent leads. And that was a big deal. And that did get them, it won them a lot of customers. So Lime Leads in this example, mentioning, hey, for 20 cents a lead, you guys can do X, Y, Z. That's intriguing. But other companies probably should not mention price in a cold email campaign.
That's important most of the time. A lot of people mention it too early, more than too late. Price is going to come up. And if you get people really interested, then you're going to get a lot of information on pricing at a later stage. If you start with price, you're not going to get any information on price beside people don't reply to me or they will reply to me. So that's going to be harder. And the last thing is that people need to see the value before they can actually understand the pricing behind it.
Okay, so your advice, don't rush to drop in price. It may turn people off.
Yeah, it's part of the sales conversation. And with cold email, you just try to open a conversation.
Next question. What's the most embarrassing cold email mistake you've made? I'll go ahead and answer this one. Like I said, I think in one of the earlier questions, how difficult it is to get good company data. Whenever that company data is inaccurate, you look very foolish. For example, imagine I'm writing to Jeremy, at QuickMail, and I'm saying, hey, Jeremy, cool software. I love how you're simplifying payroll for everyone. That's like put my foot in my mouth, smack head to forehead, and that prospect is walking away. You've pretty much burnt that bridge. Early on, I did learn the hard way why data quality is so important. My advice, get your data from as direct to the source as you can. A company's website will have more accurate information than a third party telling you about that company. So it takes more legwork, but if you goof and you say, and you have an embarrassing company stat that's completely way off, it's embarrassing, burns bridges. So data is important.
I got a slightly different mindset. First of all, I get really rarely embarrassed because my mindset is more about if you're not making mistakes, you're just not going fast enough. So that really helps to move forward. I've been done plenty of mistakes myself. So at the very beginning, when QuickMail was still just a bunch of scripts, it didn't actually analyze that people reply from a different email. And this is way more common than people think. It's like I send an email at Jack, and then it's actually, John who replies because the email has been forwarded. Or just you may have like multiple emails. You may have your Jack 1, I send the email to, but you reply under Jack 2 because that's your preferred email. That happens so often. I think it happened up to 20% of the time. And so my software was keeping on sending follow-up at that time. That's one of those things like, dude, I just replied to you. So don't worry, you're going to make plenty of mistakes. That's just part of the game.
That reminds me, I don't know if it was Facebook motto, build fast and break stuff, something like this.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And now they said, move fast with stable infrastructure, because they realized they can't keep breaking shit.
Very PC about them. Okay. So let's keep it rolling.
Next.
Should I ever give up on a cold prospect?
You're asking the guy who's got a software that you can add infinite number of follow-ups. But I say, as long as you have something interesting to say in your follow-up, then carry on. It may be a different angle. But if you're sending bump emails, then at some point you're going to have to stop, right? That's pretty much it. You could space them, So there's nothing wrong saying 6 months later, hey, just wanted to check up with you if you had a chance to consider this new lead generation channel for your company. Or, hey, this is a new year. Do you have any plan for cold email as a lead generation channel at your company? Whatever kind of thing that will make sense in a context to sort of re-engage. The other thing I would say is you don't have to build a 20 touch campaign from day one. You can start with a 3 touch campaign. And then if you keep getting a good positive reply on number 3, then add a 4th one. And if you keep getting positive reply on a 4th one, then keep adding. And at some point, you're not going to get anything. So the potential risk of getting flagged as spam versus the actual number of positive reply that come back is not worth it, then just stop there.
You mentioned so many good things. I'll just add one here. I think people give up too quickly.
That's true.
There is a point where you should stop following up with cold prospects, but in order to figure out when to stop following up, just think about the time it takes you, the effort, the resources required to keep following up, and the benefit that comes out of each follow-up. There will be a time where it's diminishing returns. So keep it up until stats or data tells you to stop, that it's not worth your time anymore. And really what we're talking about is just writing new follow-ups, coming up with new angles, or like Jeremy said, trying later in 6 months. I mean, these are all good approaches, but keep an eye on stats to figure out if following up is paying off.
Yeah, I love that. All too often people assume that they're not replying because they're not interested, where in all respect, people are freaking busy and sometimes, it's just not the right time, but they're kind of open to this idea and they put it on the back of their head and say, okay, I'll look into that later, and completely forgot about it.
And a side note, I've gotten a lot of positive replies at the 12th touch. That's the 12th touch. It's a lot of emails, and people reply saying like, all right, you proved to me that you've got persistence. You got me. All right, let's have a call. Or, hey, sorry, I was super busy. Actually, we just had a baby. I'm back to the office now, sorting through. Can you send me details? This kind of thing happens more often than you think. So don't give up yet. Okay. So how much time per week should I spend on cold email?
I think it depends on your goal, really. It's like you could be actually spending maybe 2 hours a week writing to two emails to big influencers, and then you're done. Or it could be you're spending 8 hours a day just doing your research, your prospecting, trying to get your campaigns up and rolling, and then 0 hours a day when you put the automation going the next weeks and have everything rolling. I think it's too much of a broad question. So I'll give some tips here on how to get started, because usually that's people starting who actually don't really know those things. So I'd say try to spend a minimum allocation of 1 hour each day. And I'm not saying like spend 4 or 5 hours in one go. I'm saying like spend 1 hour each day, because then you'll have the whole night and you sort of like mentally reset, and then it forces you to relook at the problem every day. And then you will come up with new ideas or new way of doing things, or that you don't necessarily see when you're spending big amounts of time in one go and then doing it the next week and stuff like that. So I would say my advice is try 1 hour a day, see how it goes, and then adjust from that point on.
That's an awesome response to the question. I can add here, if you're doing everything yourself, like Jeremy said, it's broad, it depends on your goal, but I do think an hour a day is fine. You should be able to have time to follow up on new leads, which in my opinion is probably the most important part of cold email, because I see a lot of great leads come in, and if they're not followed up properly, then why did you do cold email in the first place? So you can follow up on your leads that come in. You can add some fresh prospects, write a few cold emails each week. I like the idea of sort of doing it daily, just a little bit each time, so you get a habit if you're new to cold email, so it sticks, you see results come in. One bit of advice here, if you're doing everything yourself, maybe rethink things. If you've been cold emailing for a while, you should have a VA or someone to help you with some of the repetitive tasks so that you can focus on more of the high level activities, like identifying a new micro segment to go after, or thinking about a new value proposition to include in emails. It'll save you a ton of time and let you focus on the big stuff that makes huge improvements in reply rates and leads generated and sales closed, that kind of thing.
That's a great point. And I will double down on the fact that if you're doing it once, 1 hour per day, or whatever amount it is per day, then you're not going to have all the reply all come at once. And this is really typical. People have like 10,000 prospects, 1,000 prospects, 100, doesn't matter. They just want to contact them all at the same time. And by doing so, they're going to receive all the answers at the same time. Then, they're going to sweat a few days to get all the answers. And by then, the momentum would have been broken. And then once they finish, they have to restart again. Keep the habit of doing it like daily.
Next question. What's the best way to cold email someone about job opportunities?
Cold email is a relatively new term because honestly, unsolicited applications have been around for years. So it's not like if it's something new, but
like unsolicited job applications.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's not like it's a groundbreaking new concept around. We just repackage it as saying, oh, it's a cold email because now we're using email to do so. But honestly, technology made it so easy to apply to a new job that I think if you actually do cold email, but use it as a cover letter and just saying like, hey, I just applied to this job, but here's why I think I'm the right fit for your company. I've seen that you extended in that market last year, and according to your website, you're really looking into going into, after XYZ. This is why I'm really qualified. This is why you want me on this team and so on. And this is like so underrated, but I can tell you every time you receive those sort of cover letter, you really stand apart. You really have a much better chance of getting the job. In fact, I gave the job in some people who actually went as far as just sending me like a really fine-tuned cover letter. And for me, that's cold email 101, right? You actually find what your prospect really wants and try to find a compelling offer that resonates. So it's not really different if you're trying to get a job from someone or you're trying to get them to buy your product. It's really the same principle. Find the people that will resonate the most with your offering. In this case, it's you, your skill, your motivation, your background, your whatever, or whatever you can come up with. And follow the same rules. Do follow up and follow up with a different value proposition. Probably should have mentioned that I'm also, been working in my previous company with Spanish people, and I see you're also trying to expand into the Spanish market. So I'm sure I can contribute here. Do follow up. If you really want the job, all too often people just play like the lottery. They just cross some tick box and then hope they're going to have the winning number. No, guys, just do the work and then you'll get the job.
I heard from the guys at 37 Signals that they're not hiring people who want a job. They're hiring people who want that particular job. Like Jeremy said, if you can show in your email that you've done your research, you understand the company's goals, a bit about their culture, add that in this email to make it clear that this is the job that you're applying for, not just a marketing position somewhere in your city in this industry. Make it very clear why this is the job for you, and then see if you can work in your value props. Ideally, just something maybe to add is, can you perhaps share a bit of your work? Maybe you're a developer. Maybe you can share a link to a relevant project that you have. Something that just comes back to value props here. Last thing, an interesting call to action that may be worth testing in your follow-ups could be a specific question about the role. Show that you're interested in learning more about the position and use that to follow up and maybe schedule your interview, schedule a call so that you can take it the next step further, like traditional calls to actions we've been talking about on the cast. All right, final question of this rapid fire episode. How can you approach potential mentors with cold email? Let me kick this one off because I've got two ways of going about this. Both I've tried, both work. The first way is kind of the easiest way, and that's get an intro. If you're fortunate enough to know someone who can connect you via email, then the hard work is done and it's up to you to just move that forward. However, getting an intro can be easier than you think. Check your LinkedIn network, see if you have people in second degree connections. That's the best place to start. Or ask around. You may find that you've got people that can connect you. And if that's the case, it's easy. But this is a show about cold email, which doesn't rely on a network because it's cold email, a beautiful thing here. So quick story, when I was doing my copywriting business, I had a bunch of questions about scaling, how to really like take it to the next level, so to speak. Now, I was a fan of a particular copywriter and a subscriber to this copywriter's newsletter. I figured this would be the person who could help me get to this next level. And being a subscriber to a newsletter is a great first step to quote unquote connecting with someone you don't know. So join their newsletter. And then all I did was use the email they were sending with, and I replied to it basically with two simultaneous approaches. Fox and the Crow, I said how amazing his resources have been. And, that's like real, honest, true compliments. And second, saying that coming from a humble position where it's like, hey, I'm new to this. I'm excited, been doing X, Y, Z, but I would love to ask about how you would go about scaling a copywriting business. I think that was more or less what I was asking. And lo and behold, he replied with some really helpful tips. FYI, the tip he gave me for any copywriters out there was he actually recommended reaching out directly to companies that invest a lot in copywriting. So cold emailing companies and working on getting a retainer with them. Set up a monthly deal where you'll write for them X amount of sales letters and they will pay you X amount of dollars. And he's like, you do that with the companies and life gets easier, more predictable. After that reply came in, I asked if we could stay in touch, maybe ask a few more follow-up questions. He said, sure. And obviously this is not some mentor that's flying me down to his beach house in Palm Beach and but I could keep reaching out, follow up with some more questions, and he was happy to do it. So both ways work.
I just add a slight thing to that is it's easy to get people to give you one small tip. And once you get that small tip, a lot of people will take it like, oh, I can ask, a bigger tip or I can ask more things. But no, actually what you do is you go silent for a certain time. You actually implement that tip and then you come back with the results and say, I followed your tip. This is what happened. Thanks so much. Can I ask you a few more questions? And this is really how it works because mentor, from my experience, including myself, when people want to be mentored by me, is that we really value people who actually implement what we're saying. We don't like to just waste our time saying things. People just like sucking the knowledge and don't do anything with it. So I find very easy to get mentor when you start getting one or two pieces of information, you implement it, and then you come back with the results to them and say, look, your time was valuable. This is what it led to. And again, that will separate you from the pack, from all those people who just suck knowledge, buy books and do nothing with it. So yeah, it's another one. So buy the book, say you implement it, tell them, this is what happened in my business. Can I get like a few more questions from you because this part and this part I had problem with? And they will value that because that's direct, feedback on their advice, and then they can adapt, they can refine some of their approach. So they will love that. It is a value that you're bringing.
Okay, amazing.
That's it.
Yeah, that's it. So that's rapid fire.
Thanks, Jack.
Thanks, Jeremy. Hey, cold emailer.
Yeah, you.
If you got some value from this episode, give us a high vibe by sharing a 2-sentence review on iTunes.
Or Stitcher or TuneIn. That works too.
It's a quick way to help other growth-minded folks like us find this podcast.
So they can send awesome emails.
And make everyone's inbox a better place. Thanks.